Alright folks, coming back to you at BRAP Fab, and here's Adam cleaning up the gear. So guess what today's topic is?
Gear set Thursday, the last day of 2020, thank Jesus. So, or Buddha, or Allah, whatever you worship.
And the reason why we're doing this video today, bringing you all the knowledge that Adam has gathered, is to simply understand the concept of how the gears work, what combination to use, and so on and so forth. Now, take for granted that there is a variety of cases all over, and they all are great, and all the applications are different. So Adam, please explain to us in detail so our viewers can understand what does what and why and how it works.
So these are all quick change gears, and I would recommend a quick change case in anything over probably, 500 to 700 horsepower, depending on what you're doing. The reason why you want to run a quick change case is, I always go back to my truck. It's a perfect example. When I run the 20Ls, I run a 2.75 gear ratio. When I run 23 ones, I run a 5.2, and the truck doesn't skip a beat. It performs the same with 23 ones with these as it does with 20Ls and these. If you're limited to horsepower and tire size, like an 18.4, something like that, then you run like a 3.7 or a 4. These are just my gear sets, like a 4-to-1, and you leave it alone. I have a Pro Fab over here that we have disassembled that I have to put back together. And then they make a lot of chain drive cases too that are very, very good. The downfall of the chain drive case is that you can't change the gear. So, but they're very strong, they're quiet. The quick change really comes with like what you're doing. If you're wheeling during the day and really deep gummy shit, and you want to run like a 3.7-to-1, and then at the end of this is a perfect gear set right here. And then at the end of the day, you want to go do some drag racing, you flip it around, and it's a 2-to-1. These are combination gear sets. These are just single sets. So these can go up, down. I'll show you that in a minute. And these only fit one way.
Okay, so let me ask you this question before we get any further in detail with this. So I'm a new builder, okay? I have an idea what I want my truck to look. So I'm gonna take an example. I wanna to have a buck truck, 18.4, roughly around 700 to 850 horse, and I'm gonna run either Meritor's or 5 tons. Reason why, so it's compensating for a tire size, so you're not snapping inner axles at all times. So the gear case like this has an advantage because the axles are themselves have a different gear ratio. Am I correct or not?
Yes. Yeah. So a 5-ton is a 644, and that's basically just 1-to-1. So like whatever it's turning at the chunk is what the wheel turns, right? Where a Meritor is, I want to say it's like, oh, don't quote me, like a 565 gear ratio or 610. 610, maybe something like that. But anyway, it's 2-to-1 at the hub. Okay. So let's just say that you got a 5-ton truck, 800 horsepower, and you want to stay, and you got, we'll say an open front. We'll go worst case, we'll say a posi front, right? Posi front, 4 18.4s, R2s with 800 horsepower. You're going to want a 4.2-to-1. Now you're going to want a 4.2-to-1 to be in third gear. Just to the wood, not having a downshift in the second. Ideally, what I'd like to run, because the problem with that 4.2-to-1 is like if you're at a big event, you're at like an Iron Horse, you're at a Louisiana Mud Fest, you're at even Stuck in the Muck, it's so wide open, you can keep it in third gear, right? Say you're like woods wheeling, Jersey, stuff like that, stuff that we used to do back in the day. You might want to go like a 3.5-to-1 because you're going to be living in second, there's not enough room to even get going in third. So a lot of times it really depends on where you're going, and you don't have to switch gears all the time. Like a great gear, 5 tons, 800 horsepower, locked front and rear, I would run a 3.5-to-1.
So let me ask you this. Okay, resistance. Okay, we'll take Texas pipeline.
Yep.
Okay, Back when Toxic Truck was built,
Yep.
great power on land, but as soon as it went in, it almost fell on its face. If I'm not mistaken, that was the transmission issue, right?
Yes.
It wasn't the case issue. But we'll utilize that aspect as all kinds of power comes out, going great, and as soon as it hits resistance because of the clay or the mud that is very thick,
yeah,
it is just literally like you see the wheels turning very, very slow.
Yep.
So how would you gear that truck if it was, you know, so it has all the power?
I don't remember what Todd had in that for a gear, to be honest. But the best way I'll explain it is like we'll say we'll go with like we'll go with these. We'll take these two right here. This will be pretty obvious. So let's just say that this is what you have in a truck that does what you said it does. Hits the mud, boom, tires just stop moving. The engine's right, because now the trans is slipping, right? Because the gear ratio is too tall, right? The engine's got power, but your resistance has the tires held. This is what you got going on. You know, this is like an exploded version. This is the input. This is the output going down to the bottom. Okay. So what's happening is you have they're so similar in size, because this is wheel speed right here. These two being this close in size is a fast wheel speed. So, I mean, maybe the truck's an animal. It's gonna be an animal in like first gear, first and probably even up into second, depending on the horsepower. Third is going to be a no-no. And I don't know if Todd had the 400 or the Glide in there then. I can't remember. And we're not just using Todd's truck as an example, just anyone's. Say you took that same truck. So right now what happened is he hit the mud and that thing went like this. It doesn't have, it's like a clock, right? It can't turn. You have this gear set in there. This is coming out of the transmission. You could probably spin this with a mouse. And it's effortless. This thing is ripping that fast, right? It is literally that fast, 1,000 times faster. And this is just following it. And this right here is just doing the work. The engine is, man, you're holding the engine at probably like 4,500 RPMs, and things are just moving so smooth because the transmission is spinning like crazy. It's reduced down to the axles. The axles are doing their thing, and everything's going, right? That is this, right? So, and then sometimes you want to find a happy medium, which is like that right there. You know, again, horsepower has a lot to do with this. So let's just say that, let's do it like this, okay? Let's do it like this. 1,000 horsepower, okay? 1,000 horsepower with 23 ones and 5 tons. That's going to be your gear set. I mean, 4, 5 to 5, right? I just went with the 5.2 because, I mean, it's off the rev limiter, okay? 23 ones, 5 tons, there you go. Right here, I'm going to say comparable. 1,000 horsepower, 18 fours, okay? Going like crazy. Nice. 1,000 horsepower, 14 nines. Follow what I'm saying? Wow. So tire size difference. You can run this right here. This is almost a 1. Well, this is like a this is a 2.5 to 1. I mean, I have a 1-to-1 gear set too. Easily, you're running this with 14 nines. 18, and again, we're talking about third gear. We're talking about staying in high gear. Okay. And the other thing is, 14 nines with this right here. The tranny's going to stay. So 14 nines, 18 fours, 23 ones, all the same horsepower. All the transmissions are running probably about 150 degrees. Okay? Let's just say now you got 1,000 horsepower, 18 fours. In this gear set right here, your tranny is going to be about 220, right? You run the same thing here, maybe like 180, 150, 160. Less work, right? The engine is doing no work right here because it's just turning it like this. Here, the engine is doing more work, which is making the converter work more, building more heat. Here, it's asking every ounce of the transmission to take it. Whatever the motor puts out, the transmission is taken and transferring back to the case. That's your resistance. So this is hitting a brick wall, this is climbing halfway over it, and that's driving right through it.
I like it.
You know, and a lot of guys, you have a lot of questions about like how to figure it out and stuff, and this is what I'm going to show you right now. So these are all gear sets. So if you look right here on this one says 30T, this one says 33T. That means this one has 30 teeth, this one has 33 teeth. But the 30-33 combo is right here. It's 1.1, okay? So you can call up Craig or anybody at SCS and be like, I need a 1.100 gear set. He knows what it is, he sends it to you. This one right here is a gear set. This one is a 1333, 2736, 1333. That's how you know they're matched. Over here, 1.863, 1.863. These are matched sets, okay? So this one here, if you notice, I have written down 3.7 and 2.1. Underdrive, overdrive, okay?
Explain underdrive and overdrive.
So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna bust out, trusty old calculator. These ones here, this is its own gear set. This is meant to be underdriven. Underdriven means the small gear goes on top, the big gear is on the bottom. Here we go, okay? We're gonna underdrive it. Here's what you do. You're gonna take, when it's underdriven like this, okay? It's meant to be underdriven. So it's 1.33. So I take 1.333 times what's in mine, 2.824. That's a 3.76 gear ratio, okay? That's in the transfer case. Okay, now we're gonna get a little cray-cray. We're gonna do this. We're gonna put this one on the top because this is the combination gear. It's called the flip gear, okay? Now what you gotta do, this is where you gotta be a little smart. Now believe me, I graduated with a pre-course 1. For any of you guys out there who even had that, which is, I'm not even gonna use the R word. My daughter gets mad at me when I say that, but it's not even basic math. It's pretty bad.
Is it the same as a Common Core nowadays?
It's worse. It's worse. So they were just like, just come to school and we'll pass you. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take these two numbers right here, okay? I have these two numbers. Let's just say I don't know which, I got 27 and 36. Okay. So I'm going to do 27 divided by 36. I'll do 36 divided by 27. I'll do that first. 36 divided by 27 is 1.333, okay? That's the number that I want, okay? That's 36 divided by 27. Now you got to go the other way, okay? We're going to go 27 divided by 36, okay? That's 0.75. Now what I'm going to, man, how do I figure out what I got? 27 divided by 36, okay? It gives you 0.75, come on up here, right? 0.75, right? Times my transfer case bowl gear, 2.824. Now it's a 2-to-1 gear ratio. This is a perfect gear ratio for a bog truck that there's a bounty hole that day, but then there's a freestyle, okay? You do this, bam, 3-7-to-1, rip the bounty hole. Don't hurt your trans, let that thing eat. Hour or two later, freestyle time, go over, boom, boom, switch them around, 2-to-1. Now you got your speed, you're good to go. Here is the other part of this. So that's when you buy flip gear sets, okay? Combination sets, whatever they are. Here what I'm gonna do, 30, 33, 31, 32. So if you look at these ones right here, okay? These are very, very close. This is a 30, 33 gear set, which underdriven is 3.1, overdriven is 2.5. Here you have a 31, 32 gear set. Underdriven is 2.9, overdriven is 2.75. Okay? So you already know what they are.
Seems like a margin is very little.
Well, this is drag car shit. And some of these, they came in cases that people got rid of and I just took them. Because now you can do this. So let's just say I want to like live on the edge a little bit and get a little cray-cray. Okay? We're going to go to the old calculator. Let's just say that you got a box, right? You got a box of gears. You don't know what's what, right? You just start looking. You know this thing isn't going to fit shit. so right here, let's just say I'm like, you know what? I want to see what these two will do right here. Okay?
Okay, so we have 1.032, 3132.
Yep. And 1.100, 30, 33. So this one is 30 teeth, this one's 32 teeth. So now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take 32 divided by 31 is 1.03, okay?
Okay.
So now we're gonna do that times 2.824. That's a 2.9 gear ratio, okay? So now we're gonna go the other way. Now we're gonna do 30 divided by 32, okay? So that's 2.9 right there with the smaller gear on top. Now we got 0.9375 equals times 2.824. Now I got 2.6. Not much difference.
And 2.824 is your bull.
Is the bull gear. Now take the same set of gears, right? And my buddy's like, man, I got a 2.42 gear race or bull gear. What does that give me? You're just gonna go back and you're gonna do this. This right here is 2.2 for him. It's not the same. These gears are not the same. They'll fit in both cases, but if you got a 2.82, this is 2.6. If you got a 2.42, this is 2.2. Okay, so you can usually flip and get really close. And again, a lot of this is like drag car stuff, or like they're trying to shave tents and this and that. But when you've got your own truck and it makes a lot of power and you really want to push it to the limits, you really can get, I mean, wheel speed and traction is the key. You know, that's, you know, it's like back in the day we talked a lot of shit about rutting through swamps and beating these trucks half to death, but at the end of the day, I'm not saying to skim it, but you want to hook up and you want to be gone.
So, old school.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
None of this shit exists.
Nope.
Okay? We're taking back 20 years ago.
Yep.
We got
205.
two 205s married together. Okay? Explain to me, how do you figure out the situation in two 205s, we'll say with a Dana 61 tons?
So
we're looking at a 454, roughly about 450 horse.
So you're gonna just do, so
I can't see the calculator, so you explain to me what your calculator.
Okay.
I like that idea.
So the old school ones, 205s, I think 203 was the same, NP 200, you know, they were all 1.96 to 1 in low range, right?
Okay.
So you're gonna take one of those, 1.96, times another 1.96, 3.8.
Okay.
So we used to call that 4 to 1 basically, I mean, because it's so close, but we'll just call it a 3.8, right? So now what you could always do with those old trucks though that was sweet was if you had the factory one hooked up in the front, you can go between 2 to 4. You know what I mean? So like you can go, so you could basically, if you have two transfer cases like that, even the big military deuce and a half case, that's 1.96. So follow me here, guys. I know a lot of you understand this and some of you probably don't. If you're in an old school truck and you're running two transfer cases, and I'll get into a couple different ones. You got a 205 in the front with a divorce mount 205 behind it. If you got a cheesy mud hole and you're running like 14 9 tires, I don't know what it is, you can leave that thing right in basically too high for the first case, right? And then, well, no, too high would be, yes, because you'll leave the, we're gonna leave, I'm trying to remember what we used to do.
That's my truck.
You
That's
leave
exactly
the back
what
case
it was.
in four high or in 4 low at all times. Sorry if this is confusing. So 205 in the front to a divorce mount 205 in the back. The back case is gonna stay in 4-wheel drive, 4 low. You're gonna leave it in 4 low. The front case, you're gonna be able to shift. So you got 14, you got 18 fours, I don't care what it is, right? You put that first case in 2 high and you let it fucking rip in first gear, right? 400 horsepower, because it's just gonna rev out in first. Now you're stuck like crazy. Put that first case in 4 low, that thing, now you went from 1.96 to 1 to almost 4 to 1. Now you can back up like nothing. Keep going forward, or leave it right in low and let it go in second.
Right.
You know, just kind of leave it alone. I mean, you really shouldn't be shifting the transfer cases a whole lot. You really shouldn't need to. I mean, I used to watch guys. So now say that you got like a Super Duty truck, you know, a newer Chevy, newer Dodge. I want to say those are like 2.72 to 1. That's what the first case is. So there, let's just say that you do that, 2.72. Come on, phone. Times 1.96, 5.3, even better yet. So you got a new Ford, you got a new Chevy, you got a new Dodge, and then you got a big monster deuce case behind it, or a divorce mount 205 or an NP 200. You leave the back case in 4 low, right? So worst case, you're at basically 2 to 1. And if you really need it, you got 5-3 to 1. So that's phenomenal for like the tug of war pad. You know, Brad Boyer, I think Brad Boyer is a good example. I think he has his case, which is 2.72 times 4.1. Don't quote me, but I want to say he did. That would put you at like 11 to 1.
Oh wow.
For the tug of war pad. I don't know if he has this factory transfer case in there anymore, but if that thing was in low and he put a 4 to 1 gear in it in his drop case, because he has a chain reaction case.
That's a ton of torque.
That's you literally just put it in drive and put your feet out the door, you know, like Ty Bradley does with his truck there.
He steps right out, actually.
Yeah,
as a matter of
but
fact.
I mean, literally, it's just doing this. The motors are, and the gears are just all doing their job. So a lot of you guys, you can make a 500 horsepower truck sound like a 1,000 horsepower truck. You can't make it move like a 1,000 horsepower truck, but you can make it all by gearing, you know? So like, you know, like I don't ever knock anybody for what they have. You know, horsepower costs money, because when you have horsepower, you try to get the hook up and that breaks shit, you know? And, you know, back in the day, you know, my buddy Brian Bam Bam had said it. He's like 5 tons, 18 426s, 800 horsepower, turbo 400, have a nice day. No problems. Go. You know, it just works. The tranny holds together, the gear ratio is perfect, and you just let it go. But things are a lot different now. Now with the hater kits, Meritors, Axle Techs, 50-ton planetaries, you know, these things are reduced down to effortless, you know? So, or you see a guy burning it down on a tug of war pad, he's probably almost got like a 1 to 1. Right. Which is what like your street truck is going down the road and drive, you know?
So let's talk about lubrication.
Yeah.
Okay. Given the old 205s and new SCSs, is these cases still run gear oil?
Yeah, you just don't need as much. You know, I run like 2 quarts in there, you know? Here's the other thing. You know, it's like if you look at this case here, this one's kind of torn apart. I mean, you only really need fluid up to about right here, to be honest. I mean, you only really need it down here. I mean, more is going to be better because, so like when you got a lesser horsepower truck, depending on the gear ratio, the fluid is moving. You ever go to like Ace or like AutoZone and they got the little thing you squirrel really fast, the Lucas oil things? That thing with a 5.2 or a 3.7, it rips so fast it shoots gear oil up my breather at my feet. So you got to kind of find a happy medium. You can't have too much gear oil in there, because if you got a low gear, it's going to spit it right out the breather.
Actually, as a matter of fact, I believe a YouTube video I watched a while back, it was the Banks, does that ring a bell, with the 7.3 diesels?
Okay, yep.
Okay, they did a segment on rear differential in a street truck.
Oh yeah.
In the cover.
With the diff cover clear?
Yeah, and they did the clear cover, and then they did the aftermarket ones that are bent the same way.
Yep.
And what a difference it makes of how your rear end is lubricated.
Right.
So with, say, the top loaders, I remember back in the day, actually right here down the road, remember your, I believe it was a gray truck, extended cab?
Yep.
We had 2.5 tons, you broke something. And I'll never forget, being in the woods, I mean, luckily we were close to the house, but you took a pry bar, because we loosened up the center chunk. 2.5 tons, a little lighter than 5 ton by all means. And we put that through the bearing part, and we carried it to your dad's to
Which
get
is a quarter mile.
Quarter mile, but hey, we had to do what we had to do.
Brought it back.
Yeah.
Put it in.
Well, what was awesome with this, even 5 tons are the same setup, is the tires stay on. All you do is you pull the inner axles out, pull the chunk out, and you're good. Where I would say, what was it, 1 tons is a little different, because you can't, there's no chunk to take
take the carrier out.
Take the carrier out, you're gonna be
So
the convenience of for a boggin truck, a bog truck like this, 5 tons, 2.5 tons with a heater kit and so on and so forth, have their privileges. I'm not educated enough on Meritor's, but I do see a lot of people run it
We got a
just
whole
simply
bunch of them.
because
Yeah.
of the clearance issues. So
Yeah.
the clearance issues right here, not only the gear ratio and the axle, but the clearance issue right here, truck is able to set a lot lower to the ground for a higher speed and better
Right. Yeah.
execution of your event, such as a freestyle. So you're closer to the center of gravity versus being a box truck
Right.
that is capable of doing it.
Yeah.
But man, you might want to grab a Red Bull or two.
Yeah. And
Yes.
again, you know, it's like I keep going back to this a lot with a lot of different things, is it comes down to driving style too, you know? It's like if you're nuts, I mean, you know, you want that truck to work, you know? So it's like we used to always kind of go by like a half rule of thumb. 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5 for like your gear ratios, you know? It wasn't until I started making some really good power, getting some really good traction, being able to dial that thing into maybe like you know what, maybe like a 2.75. You know, the tranny likes it, the motor likes it. You know, you don't want to be, that's the other thing too, is like you don't want to be on the rev limiter. You don't want to always be going, you know, Jeremy Gojin style. Give him a little shout out, right? He was on TV. Did you know that?
Dirty Seven.
Dirty Wiener Suckers. And Jeremy Gojin. I don't know if he does that, but he was on there. But anyway, Jeremy's life is, you want to be able, so like with this truck right here down in Louisiana, and even stuck in the muck, I ran that 5.2 and I was pedaling it. You know, for all you like street outlaw guys, like understand what that means. You're backing out of the throttle, which is where you want to be. You don't want to, I mean, you don't want to have a gear in it so low that you're like stuffed into it trying to get it, but you also don't want a gear where you're literally, you want a gear where it's got wheel speed, power on demand, and you're just, and again, for a lot of people, it's not third gear, it's second. So a lot of times when I build trucks for people, or even if I'm going somewhere, like, what's a good example? The power lines back in the day, right?
Okay.
Stuck in the muck now is a little bit different, but like I would gear my truck for second gear in the transmission. You know, I would never run a power glide up there, you know, because you got to stay in high gear. Or if I did run a power glide, I would stay in low because it's too like this. You know what I mean? You're going to flip over. So I would gear the truck to run second gear. So I might run a 3-to-1 gear, which I can't really hold third, right?
Right.
But second gear is ungodly, you know?
So understand, guys, the gearing is important. Why? Okay, back in the day, we're taking old school trucks where universals was the weak link.
Yes.
Now the transmissions are.
Yes.
So you're trying to dissipate the heat from transmission and overworking the transmission
Now,
by gearing it correctly
yeah.
and properly to the occasion that
Now,
you're doing.
we could get into a whole nother thing with transmission gearing and torque converter, but that it's like an endless debate. So it's like a lot of guys, you guys will run low stall converters. This truck right here, just under 1100 horsepower, I run a 4200 stall, right? And I usually run, like with these tires right here, 57 inches tall, I'll run a 3.5-to-1 gear. Okay, and then that's where we're at. I hurt a motor years ago because I had a 3200 stall on it. They sent me the wrong one. I went a little too low, put a little bit too much load, ended up hurting some bearings. So you got to be careful there too. You know, but you also don't want to put a 5500 stall converter in this truck either, because then it'll be screaming all day long.
Well, gearing is important, and
Sure.
overheating the transmission can cause a huge fire
Yes.
and possibly a total loss of a truck, depending on location you are and if you have access to a fire extinguisher.
Get the gears, save the heat.
Yeah, and grab a fire extinguisher.
Yes.
You never know, guys.
Yeah.
But until then, you know, we're gonna keep doing those things, these segments, because if it's important to you to understand what gear set and so on and so forth in detail like this, please comment below and we will try to utilize this information into future videos. What parts you don't understand. I understand that texting sometimes doesn't explain the picture if you were to see it visually.
Right.
That's why we did what we did today on the gear sets.
And like, I'll just like wrap this up on this here. It's like, you can't always ask somebody, you know, like I can get you close. A lot of guys can get you close. You know, Craig from SCS, when I called him with my 23 ones, I listened to what he said. I kind of went with what I said. We kind of met in the middle. You know what I mean? And it worked out perfect. So it's like, again, driving style, the mud that you're going to be in, if it's thick, if it's clay, if it's loose, if it's black muck, you know, that all plays. You know, it's like I could bring a couple of different gear sets. If I know it's going to be really, really deep clay, 5.2. If it's going to be like really loose stuff, 3.7. You know, if I'm going to try to rip across the top of this thing, 2.5. You know, so, you know, these gear sets usually run about 180 to 220 bucks for a set. I know that it costs money to do this, but people can get you close, and then you just got to go out and do it.
And by quick change, how long would you say it takes to swap the gears?
Less than 10 minutes, really. So it's like I can kind of, well, I can show you like on this really quick. All you do with these, literally, is these bolts come off here. Right? These nuts come off, this cover comes off, one gear's right there, one gear's right there. Pop them off, put the new ones, put the cover back on, and you're good.
And the cleanup is minimum because
let the truck set a little bit, you know, so that the gear oil runs off the gears.
It'll run down, and your level is at the bottom where the rear drive shaft is, so it's below the cover that you're removing.
Yep.
So that would make it very simple, and that's why a lot of drivers prefer a quick change case.
I got a couple trucks coming in where I have to actually mount transfer cases in, gear them, and at that time, we'll do a quick segment on how to swap out the gears. Hey, can I see that drill?
Do what, man? Oh, that's an impact. That's pretty cool. What are you doing?
Oh, I gotta move this thing.